Hi and welcome to the video. I'm Dame and this is Dame Over, and today's video is slightly different from the usual fare. I've been asked by quite a few of you guys in the comments of my recent videos to make a settings video so you can see what I choose to use on console. So for those of you guys that play on PC, this might not be the most useful to you until we reach the audio and video parts, but if you want to skip ahead to that, please feel free. If you are after some gameplay and other sorts of guides and stuff, I've got a few on the channel already for Battlefield 5, so I've linked them in the description. If you want to check those out, please do. That would be fantastic if you can. And if you do find this video useful, hitting the like button is always massively appreciated. So let's kick things off by going to the options and controls so you can see exactly what I've chosen. Now on the basic, I don't think I've changed anything from default apart from the soldier aim sensitivity and soldier zoom aim sensitivity, which you can see there. So I'm at 40 and 85% respectively. This is totally personal preference, so you should spend time on different settings finding out what works for you. You need to actually put in quite a grind to work out, I find, the settings that will work best for you. So these are the ones that I've currently landed on, and I have changed them a bit over the last couple of days. They were a bit lower, both of them, before. Let's head over to the control schemes. I'm going to flub a lot here because I'm doing this without a script. Really stupid. Okay, so everything, as you can see here, is default apart from the top one, soldier buttons. So what I've done is swap around the melee and crouch and slide buttons. So that means that when I'm sliding around a corner or using the slide ability at all, I use the right stick, and that means that if I am using it to get around a corner and surprise someone, then that means I don't have to compromise my aiming because my thumb is still on the stick. This is a habit I picked up in Destiny 1 with the control scheme they had there, and I used it in Battlefield 1 as well. I definitely advise using it. It's really useful in close quarters battles if you've got SMGs, shotguns, that sort of thing, and you need to hit your shots, then making sure you're as accurate as possible by keeping your thumb on the stick that aims just makes perfect sense to me. So I'd try that out if I was you, see if it works for you as well. We've got in advanced, so I've taken stick aiming acceleration all the way down to 0. So stick aiming acceleration is a bit of a weird one. Some people do like to keep it on. I really don't like it at all. So it takes time. If you were to move the stick, let's say to the right hand side all the way, it takes time for it to reach the maximum velocity of you turning to that side. So you have to sort of adjust and move the stick only a certain percentage if you want to get across the screen in a certain way. For me, it's very confusing and it adds a level of difficulty that seems completely unnecessary if you can turn it off. If it's on 0%, then your aiming is entirely consistent. It goes at 100% of velocity in any direction that you look at all times. So uniform soldier aiming I have on. So uniform soldier aiming means that across all of the weapons, your aiming is going to be exactly the same, basically. It helps with consistency, and like in the description there, it helps with muscle memory for aiming. So all of the weapons will feel like they aim in exactly the same way, which is always very useful. If we head down here, I think I've left everything as default, and because of the uniform soldier aiming, all of this is exactly the same. Yep, it is all the same. And vehicle sensitivity, I rarely ever use vehicles at all, so these settings don't particularly matter to me at all. So I've left them as default as well. So if we head over to controller tuning, vibration I have on. Quite a lot of people and some pros only play with it off if they play on console because they think that it will help not affect your aim if it is vibrating at the same time. And yeah, I understand the theory behind it, but for me, I'd rather have the extra feedback so I know if I'm getting shot and stuff like that, and it does sort of add to the experience as well. And being used to having vibration on for as long as I can remember playing FPSs, it makes more sense to keep it on so it doesn't upset the balance for things. So the controller left stick dead zone, so this I think I have slightly different from the default. I can't really remember how I changed it. No, it is default. It is default for both of these on the right stick as well. And basically, these are all used to change how much you need to move each of the buttons, each of the sticks, for it to have a response. And I've left it all basically exactly the same. It doesn't make that much difference for me, but this is something that you may want to tweak yourself. So make sure you go and have a try of some of those at least so you can find out what works for you. And that's done with the controls. Let's head over to gameplay. So I've got the HUD on. I've turned the HUD motion off because it's a bit of a distracting thing. Yeah, it does add to the experience. Totally, it does. But it is very distracting for me to see all the numbers and stuff jumping around. It's just one more thing for you to try and keep track of with your eyes rather than trying to focus on picking people out in the distance. This stuff doesn't particularly matter. I have the chat log on, but no one ever uses that, to be perfectly honest. That is off. Inventory is on. Yeah, of course it is. Crosshair visibility 100%, and I've changed the color to bright green, so that's to help me pick it out on the screen. It makes it a little bit easier to aim, I think, in my opinion. Green is quite an easy color to pick out for the eye. And the kill log is on. Yep, you can see all of this. I like to know with the kill log, it's like an extra bit of information, so you know if your team's getting slayed out, if you're slaying out the enemy team, who's killing who with what, which is also very, very useful. So if you're approaching an objective you know is contested, you hear gunfire from there, and one of your teammates is killed in the kill feed, you can see what weapon the enemy is using. So that means it will be able to help you decide how you're going to approach that fight if you need to get into it. It's a very useful tool, actually. All of this I've left on show. I think this is all default as well. The hit indicator I've left as default as well. Having the crosshair as standard as bright green means that I haven't changed this hit color because it stands out more, basically. There's no need to change it, in my opinion. And the minimap is very, very important. So I have the texture opacity at 60%. I think this is a little bit higher than default. I rotate it as though like I'm standing inside the map. All of this is default as well. The minimap size is a big thing. Actually, no, I've changed the on-foot zoom radius to 80. That's gone up a bit. So that means you can see quite a lot of each objective if you're on it and capturing it. I can't remember what the default is, but it restricts the view a little bit, so it's a bit closer. But this way, with it on 80, it means you can see far more around you on the minimap. And the minimap size is 130%, again, to give you even more information. So it's basically just giving you as much of an advantage as possible before you go into a fight. I've changed this to all, just so I know where the weapons are. It's a lot easier for me to work out how I'm going to play against certain things in attacking situations if I know where the defenders might be, if they're going to decide to use the stationary weapons at all. And in the advanced, I've got all of this exactly the same, and you'll notice that I have turned aim assist, auto rotation and slow down off. I am playing around with either of these, basically. I have it on in most of the videos that I've made already, but the most recent one, and certainly the next one to come out with any gameplay in, I have aim assist off. It's not particularly strong in Battlefield 5, so I haven't noticed that much of a difference, but it definitely does help if you're sniping. And if you're going into close quarters and using hip fire, your aim doesn't get dragged off of anything, which is very useful as well, obviously. But you need to find out what works for you. In Battlefield 1, the aim assist was very, very strong. They did obviously reduce it they reduced it after a while because it was too strong and it was too easy, particularly the auto rotation. But Battlefield 5, like I said, is pretty minimal. So work out what works for you. And here we go onto the audio settings. So I have master volume, obviously 100%. Music volume, I have at 0%. This is basically because I'm a content creator and the music in-game gets in the way of any music I put underneath a video. So if you want to experience the full experience of Battlefield 5, turn the music on. There are some in-game notifications that come through with the music, like if you're approaching the end of a round, the music changes, so you know what's going to come next and you can act accordingly on that one. For the sound preset, I've changed to 3D headphones. I have a headset myself, and the idea being on the 3D headphones is that you get more directionality from all of the audio cues. Unfortunately, at the moment in Battlefield 5, if you've played it at all with a headset on, you'll know that the audio cues are messed up. There basically aren't any footsteps and all of that business, which isn't very helpful. Hopefully that's going to be patched on the 4th of December, so we'll have to wait and see with that one. VoIP, so if you want to hear your squad mates, if you're not in a party, then you can either have that on or off, and I'm actually going to change that and turn that off because I meant to ages ago. The subtitles are exactly the same as default. So if we head over to video, this is a very important one. Brightness I have at 57%. Now this is going to be different for each person depending on what monitor or TV you're using or what Xbox you're using, what you're used to in other games as well. So make sure you play around with that. It's definitely really important to get the brightness right, especially in this game that doesn't have 3D spotting, so you need to be able to pick people out in the distance and even up close. Sometimes you can lose them in the buildings and foliage and all of that lot. So make sure you play around with this setting and you get that right. Field of view I've bumped up to 76, so I want to be able to see quite a bit of the periphery of my vision, but what I'm trying to avoid is the fishbowl effect that happens. I think you guys might know what I mean, where the edges of the screen are stretched and it feels like you're moving super fast all the time if you turn. I really didn't like that in Battlefield 1. It caused me some big issues, so I went back to the default for field of view, but I found a sort of middle ground here, which I'm very happy with. I can see what's happening either side of me, and I can still maintain a quality image in the middle so I can pick things out if I'm deciding to aim with my gun. So what we've got, everything else I believe is exactly the same on these two. ADS field of view, I've kept that off because I don't want that sort of fishbowl effect to happen when I'm aiming down sight. It will affect your aim. Your accuracy does get affected quite a bit, I find, if you can't see what's going on there. The depth of field effects, okay, which is something that I have off. I'll come back to motion blur in a sec. Depth of field effects I have off because I don't want to get snuck up on, basically. If you can't see someone that's moving from either side of you, then you won't be able to act accordingly. If it blurs any part of the image, I find that's really not helpful at all. So I've decided to get rid of that as a factor. Motion blur I've turned all the way off, again, to keep the quality of the image as good as it can be all the time. And basically it's the same for all of these. I've decided to turn all of these off to make picking things out as easy as possible. So if you're playing War Stories and you want to experience Battlefield 5 the way it was designed, I would whack all of these back on. But for multiplayer, it definitely does help. I've played with them on and played with them off. And for me, it just helps me pick things out. Like I said before, it's all about getting as much information in and as easy a way as possible. So having all of these settings off is definitely the best way for me to do that. And those are all the settings. So if you guys have found that useful at all, it would be amazing if you could hit the like button. And if you're new around here and you want to make sure you keep up to date with loads of other Battlefield 5 content, then make sure you hit the subscribe button too. And here's a quick thank you to those of you guys who are helping to support the channel through Patreon. It's because of you guys that I'm able to make content as often as I do. And hopefully in the near future, with a bit more support, I'll be able to start doing this full time and get more videos out to you more often. So I've left a link in the description and a pinned comment for the Patreon page where if you'd like to, you can help support the channel from as little as $1 a month. And here's a quick look at my profile so you can see how I'm doing so far. I didn't think I had that much of a win ratio, but that's really cool. 2.5 KD. I'm working my way up. I'm gonna reach a 3 KD before Christmas, I promise. So yeah, if you had a good time, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell button for notifications, and till next time, that's Dame over. Peace.